Valentine's Day in 2018, there was a mass school shooting at the Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. This was declared the deadliest high school shooting in history. The suspect was a 19-year-old who had been diagnosed with autism at an early age and was bullied over the years. The shooting left 17 people dead and 17 others injured. The Florida Bureau of Investigation investigated the shooting and found that the Broward County Sheriff's Office was responsible for failing to manage the situation, leading to more people getting harmed than expected. Therefore, the families of the victims got together to consult with a group of attorneys in order to sue various institutions who failed to properly address the shooter. In total, there were 40 lawsuits. After the shooter pleaded guilty to his crimes and was sentenced to life in prison, there was a resolution for all lawsuits. The United States Department of Justice settled them for $127.5 million. An agreement was made that would no longer allow the shooter to make money out of his name if anyone tried to make movies or books about him. If the shooter wants to make a profit out of his reputation, he should get permission from one of the injured victims. That is what the lawsuit's resolution states. The investigation that had been conducted accused the school's resource officer, Scot Peterson, of failing to stop the shooting. Peterson had been outside of the campus's buildings and never went indoors to kill the shooter. The community of Parkland shamed him for that, and he would soon get into legal trouble. A lieutenant, also from the sheriff's office, resigned after she had been accused of failing to scatter the deputies properly. She had lined them up around the building instead of immediately sending them inside to kill the shooter. Unlike Scot Peterson, she never faced any legal troubles because her offenses were not as severe. Officer Peterson was the only deputy who would face criminal charges. He was also involved in a lawsuit in civil court which accused him of causing the injuries of those 17 students whom faced wounds in the shooting. The head of the county's deputies, Sheriff Israel, approached Peterson 8 days after the shooting while he had been working. Israel confronted Peterson about the allegations and suspended him without pay. Scot Peterson then immediately retired, and weeks later he was no longer employed with the office. He would afterwards continue to be investigated. 184 witnesses were interviewed. With his work benefits, defense attorney Joseph DeRusso III was hired to represent him. On June 4, 2019, Scot Peterson was charged with 11 felony crimes. 7 of them were for child neglect, 3 of them for culpable negligence, and 1 of them for perjury. The one perjury charge was filed because Peterson was believed to have lied to investigators by telling them that he had only heard 2 or 3 shots after arriving at the scene. After the charges were filed, a warrant for his arrest was issued. He complied and let the Broward County Sheriff's Office's deputies meet up with him and arrest him. Peterson spent that night in the Broward County Jail and then faced Magistrate Jackie Powell. Powell set his bail to $102,000 and required him to surrender his passport in order to be released. This caused him to run into an unfortunate issue because his passport was in North Carolina, another state miles away. Therefore, retrieving the passport was a process that would take several days, causing him to remain in jail. During those several days, the county's district judge, Elizabeth Scherer, arraigned Peterson. He pleaded not guilty and his bond was reduced to $39,500 because despite the allegations, the court believed that he did have intentions to stop the shooting and tried his best. Once the passport was retrieved, his bond was posted for him with his law enforcement benefits, and he was released from jail. Several attempts were made to drop the charges, but none of them succeeded. The same with the civil lawsuit, which he still faces and is pending. He is expected to go to trial for that later on. Peterson switched attorneys during his legal journey. He switched to Mike Eiglarsh, who would represent him from the time on. This trial took place in June 2023 and took several days. In the end, the jury believed that Scot Peterson thought that the shooter was roaming the campus outside and not shooting up the school indoors. Therefore, he was acquitted and found not guilty on all charges. His passport would then be returned to him and he was completely free. The prosecutor, Harold Pryor, was pretty disappointed of this jury for letting him go. Scot Peterson was pretty emotional as the verdict was read. He was worried that he would be in prison for life. Judge Martin Feen let him go and announced that none of the jurors ever had to discuss why they chose to acquit Peterson. Deputy Peterson has offered his condolences to the families and said that he's willing to speak to them if they so choose to in order to discuss what happened on that day and his actions. All family members have refused to do so and don't even want to see him on a TV screen. Thank you for listening. Please share this podcast to someone you know who may be interested in true crime. Don't forget to follow the podcast and like the episode for more content. If you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and like and share. Also, hit that bell icon if you haven't already, so you never miss another video on here. Till next time, goodbye.